Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Ray. Laura, Christine. Hello, everybody. All right. Good afternoon. The date is October 17th, 2023, and the time is 4:32 p.m. I'd like to welcome everyone to this meeting of the Uplift Education Board of Trustees. To ensure we have a quorum present, I'm going to read out the names of the members of the Executive Committee, and if you are here, please indicate so by saying present. Colin Clark, here. Dr. Lael Melville.
Here.
Thank you. John Becker.
Here.
Thanks, John. Simon Chen.
Here.
Thank you. Pilar Davies.
Here.
Thanks. Ricky Garcia.
Here.
Thanks. Rusty Jaggers.
Here.
Thank you. Cameron Johnson. Andre McEwen. John McPherson.
Here.
Thanks, John. Harold Montgomery. Here. Thanks. James Stanton. Christine Vandevelde.
Here.
Thank you. I note here that we do in fact have a quorum of the Executive Committee present, and I call to order this meeting of the Board of Uplift Education. First thing, we know it is a very troubled time in the world, and on behalf of both of us, Lael is going to share a few words.
Thank you, Colin. I am so grateful for the program that we are. As you know, we are the International Baccalaureate Program, which means that we touch around the world. And it makes sense then that with that in mind and a sensitivity to all, that we recognize pain and loss in the world. And so I simply want to acknowledge that with you who I know care about what it is that we are doing, not just here, but around the world. So thank you for helping me acknowledge this moment in time, and I appreciate that you are concerned too.
Thank you, Lael. Our first item of business is the community forum. Alex is unfortunately unable to join us this afternoon, recovering from a medical procedure on his shoulder, I think. So he's doing great. But we are delighted to have in his place our Senior Director of Legal Affairs, Derek Ward. Hello, Derek. Advising us today. Derek, do we have any community members who are signed up to speak today?
We did not.
Thank you, Derek. Okay, Yasmin's up for our mission moment.
Yeah, thank you, Colin. So every year at Uplift, we have our college and career fair, which took place on September 19th. It's where we bring all 1,000 seniors together in a rotation throughout the day to get to go around and visit with local colleges who are there. We also have career-based organizations. I just wanted to share with you some numbers. We had 126 organizations participate, with our largest turnout of organizations to date. 114 were colleges, 12 were career-based organizations, and the military branches, and then of the 114 colleges, 110 were four-year institutions. It was really fantastic to see our seniors going around talking to colleges. When I was going around thanking reps for being there, they all spoke about just the presence of our seniors, how professional they were, what great questions they were prepared with, and you can see on the next slide just some pictures of our scholars going around the fair. So they had these bags we gave them so they could put all of their different college and career brochures inside of it. So we had lots of great institutions represented.
Sure.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
that's it.
Okay.
There was any questions, but that was my mission moment.
Questions for you?
Quick question, why was it the largest ever?
I think every year we just keep getting more and more of the colleges we engage with, and as our scholars go off to different institutions, they hear about what a large presence the scholars are going to get to know and usually how well it is run, and they say yes and turn out. So obviously as we have scholars go to an institution, that really helps introduce that institution to more of our scholars, so the institution gets bigger, and the willing participant is out there. Plus, we're also intentionally adding career program offices as well, right? So that just naturally also.
Okay, our next item of business is the annual ESL bilingual overview, and I will hand it over to Stephanie Augenbach. I don't know if I pronounced that
Nailed
right.
it.
Did I?
You did.
Okay.
You're a good student.
Stephanie is, Ms. Augenbach, is Managing Director of Academic Strategy and Support. Thank you for being with us today.
Sure. Thanks for having me. I get to present this report once a year, so I've met with many of you before. And I'm joined today by Kinson Mellon, our manager of EL programming, who helped me prepare this report and will be available to answer really specific questions that we have. So you have a copy of this, and you received it in your pre-read. I know you also got a copy of the very lengthy required document that we're required to share with you that has all the tables. I'm going to go through just a few slides today that I think are perhaps most interesting or most relevant for you, and I'm happy to take any questions you have. The first slide I want to show you is the scholar results from TELPAS, which is the state assessments that our English learners sit for every spring that measures their English language proficiency in reading, writing, speaking, and listening. When we get the reports back, we see for scholars what percentage of scholars have actually regressed in their language skills, what percentage of scholars have maintained, and what percentage of scholars have progressed. Regression probably, when you see regression, that is a standard part of learning a new language. That is, the content progresses, you may take a step back. Your passive vocabulary might develop, whereas your active vocabulary doesn't. So I did want to name that when we see that, that is not necessarily alarming in and of itself. That is part of learning a new language. When I look at these results here, I'm pretty happy with our listening and reading. I see that we are doing a great job of advancing students as they move through our program. And I think it's important to think about the act of listening and reading. That is something that when you read something, you get to take a moment to process it. When you listen to something, you get to take a moment to process it. So that tells me that when our students have a chance to process information in a new language, in the English language, they're progressing quite nicely. I'm not satisfied with our speaking. You can see that actually our regression on speaking is okay. It's our maintaining. Our students are maintaining their ability to speak in the English language, but they're not progressing quickly enough. Frankly, I think we are still seeing after effects of the pandemic and a virtual learning environment there. There's just a bit more of a lag there than there would be with our native English speakers. We invested in a new curriculum last year that we worked with several schools, and we saw about a 30% bump out of that, which is promising, but we're continuing to have to grow on that. And then writing, I just want to call out that writing was different this year. This was a year that the state changed the way that writing was measured and scored for our English learners. So that's not going to count toward our accountability. My guess is they're going to do some tinkering with the rigor of it, if you will, for this coming spring. So we just got to be getting things on that for a spring, essentially. I'm going to move us forward to slide 15, which shows you how our English learners do on DP assessments. So DP is our diploma program. That's our 11th and 12th graders who are in the International Baccalaureate program that Dr. Melville spoke about. Right? This is super rigorous college access work where our students sit for exams and earn college credit. What I think is really exciting here, so a student when they're in the IB program will sit for a number of different exams. When I look at this past school year for our English learners, 27% of them did not pass an IB exam. That means 73% of them did. That means 73% of our graduating English learners are graduating college ready and earning college credit. That is significant and something that we do not see at our competing ISDs and something that makes me really excited. That tells me that the program we have in place at Uplift to develop bilingual, bicultural, biliterate students is working. It's taking longer than it needs to, but I'm confident that by the time my 11th and 12th graders graduate here, we've done a great job developing their English and often Spanish literacy and language abilities. So I think that's actually really exciting. And then I just have two slides. Next slide, I just want to tell you a little bit about just what our work looked like last year. We were able to retain 78% of our instructional staff and 95% of our central office staff, which is great. That means I get to continue developing the talent that we already have. Kinsley and her team do a great job with staff engagement, partnering with our people team. We did a couple of reorganizational moves where we allowed people to specialize on either compliance or instructional matters. As you might guess, there's a lot of paperwork required for English learner programs in the state of Texas. So by allowing a subset of employees to focus their time on that, it freed up capacity for another group of employees to really dive into instruction. That was a good move that we made. We've seen a lot of results there. We've partnered with our people team to invest in incentivizing more teachers across the network to earn their ESL certification. Our numbers, our headcounts for English learners and children who are newly arrived to this country are just skyrocketing. So the more that I can get current Uplift employees to have the certification to support those students, the better. I think that program last year, 17 teachers got their certification through that partnership with the people team. And then we've increased support for our Real Scholars. Those are our scholars who are newly arrived to the country, have only been here for 3 years. Just in the last year, y'all, that headcount number has tripled. And I don't think that is going to slow down. Now, it is small, it is like 150 students. It is still a small number, but I just see that number get bigger and bigger, and I am trying to get ahead of that. On the next slide, I'll share with you what I have planned for this year. Next slide, Carrie. Oh, no, I'm sorry. You had already changed it. So that second bullet point, I've actually been fortunate enough to be able to add 2 positions specifically to support that newcomer, that Rael, those students who are newly arrived to the country. We are also in a planning year for introducing dual language instruction to our schools, which is super exciting. Right now, if you visit our Uplift schools, you will see instruction happening only in English. What we're going to start doing next year is in select primary schools, starting with pre-kindergarten and kindergarten, we will have dual language instruction, which means that you will see students learning in Spanish and English. My bet that I'm making here is that if we start with both languages, I will be able to develop bilingual, bicultural, biliterate students earlier, and I hope those IB numbers that I showed you will be even better. So that's the bet that I'm making for this year. Yes.
When you say bilingual, you have one teacher speaking in English and then the Spanish speaking, or it's one teacher says it in English and then Spanish?
Great question. So we're going to start this with pre-kindergarten and kindergarten. This will look like a kindergarten class of 22 kids with one teacher. They'll spend their whole day in that classroom with that one teacher. The teacher themselves is bilingual and will do roughly 80% of the instruction in Spanish, 20% of the instruction in English. As the child gets a little bit older, maybe towards 2nd or 3rd grade, we would see that teacher doing 50% of their instruction in English, 50% in Spanish. By the time the child reaches 5th grade, it's almost entirely English instruction. So what you're doing is you're allowing the student to operate with the mode, the language that they are most familiar with, to understand the rigorous content and like gradually building them up to that English proficiency.
Another question, so what happens to the child that speaks English but doesn't speak Spanish?
They have the opportunity also. Their parents will be able to elect for their child to sit in this classroom, or they will have the opportunity to learn Spanish.
But it's not for all
No.
pre-K or?
No. Oh, this is a program of choice, right? Uplift is a network of choice, right? We really believe in choice. It's the same thing here. Parents have the option to opt into this program, but it's certainly not required. Yeah.
So do they change topics that they are instructed in for the specific languages? I.e., do they do math always in one language and they do literacy in a different language?
I'm going to let Kinsley answer because that's a little bit more specific.
So generally, the way that looks is each year it would be specific. So for instance, in the lower grades, pre-K and kinder, math would be completely in Spanish and it would start to shift as they get older. Literacy is always split, and so there would always be some literacy instruction happening in both languages.
So that's my big bet that I'm making this year. Lots of refining practices, adding capacity where we can. But the language is my big bet. I'll be excited to come back a year from now and tell you how that's going.
So lots of enthusiasm from the campuses that are participating.
Yes.
So
So
we're
we
excited to have this as an opportunity to better service our English language.
Yeah, we've selected 6 primary schools where we'll start this at. division in general has been excited and receptive to this. We are glad to have a planning year to spend some time developing those leaders and teachers to get them ready to go.
First of all, thank you for highlighting the amazing DP results. Wow. Question, as far as we're aware, do we think that we have a number of students who are really recently arrived in the United States in these circumstances that we all read about, like a whole lot of disadvantages to the
Yeah,
family?
we don't see it, like, so when I speak to my peers in the valley, I think they see much more dire situations than we do. Typically, our students that are newcomers have a bit more of like a stable home life. They're just newer to the country and they have certainly some academic gaps that we need to fill. Yeah.
Other questions for Stephanie?
You skipped 13 and 14, which were interesting.
Sure.
If we're not going to talk about them today, that's fine, but I would like to talk to somebody.
Can you go back to that?
Sure, we can go back. Yep, so those are our map and our star results. Carrie, if you'll go back to 13, please. So this is our star results. I know that when Dr. Washington met with y'all last month, you looked at our star results, but this is comparing state English learners with Uplift English learners, with Uplift in general, with the state app general. When I look at this, what I see is that our ELs skyrocketed after the pandemic, and now they're growing at the same rate as their monolingual or native English-speaking peers. What that tells me is that what my team and I need to do is invest our energy in tier 1 or first instruction, the instruction that happens in the classroom with all the children in the room. Because if our ELs are progressing at the same rate as the rest of their peers, that's where I can get bang for my buck. Okay, so I mentioned earlier I did a reorg where I now have a subset of coordinators who are focusing solely on instruction. Like, they get to partner with teachers and drive that initial instruction rather than saying, let me wait till the lesson's over, let me pull you out, and let me go through it with you. Like, I'd rather just get it right up, get it going to impact everyone. Does that make sense?
It does. I think the question I have on this is, in virtually every band, Uplift is below the state. Is that typical? Because you compare yourself over a variety of socioeconomically able districts and not just what we compare ourselves to here in Dallas?
It's typical. What I will note is that we outperform state English learners by a pretty wide margin. I don't perform the state at large, just like in many subject and grade bands, Uplift do not outperform the state at large. But I am providing a better opportunity for English learners than the state at large. At least that's my takeaway.
We're about 30% higher poverty than the state.
So from the perspective of English language learners,
Higher
this
poverty
is
than
good.
the states overall.
Yes, yes. It gets, I would go back to that slide about IB. The older the students get, the more confident I feel in our programming. I think if you ask me to identify a division where I have the most work to do, it's in primary. But yes, like, I feel confident about the program we deliver compared to state English learner programming. Yasmin, did I?
Yes, and no, and I was just gonna say, I don't want to misspeak, but I believe our gap to the state is, or overall Uplift scores, is widest in primary, and then narrowest in middle and high school.
You know what, something else I would point out, and this is Kinsley doing a great job with the program. This slide, Rusty, this is not for passing STAR. This is for meets and masters on STAR, which is a much higher bar. If you look at just the basic passing, to be honest, I don't know the comparison, but we really focus here on meets and masters, and so I Kinsley put that as the slide versus the approaches rate. Something else to think about here. I appreciate you bringing that up. Yeah.
I just want to say that the latest research, this is really interesting to me, because the latest research on language and learning is that children learn, that anybody learns fast in the language they think in. So this is a really interesting way to give them a very sound foundation.
Yes. I think if we can deliver on this, it differentiates us from our current competition. I also think, like, if there's an opportunity for English-speaking parents to bring their English-speaking children into our schools and have the option to learn two languages for free, like, that could be a differentiator for us if we can do this well.
Any other questions for?
Okay, hearing none, thank you so much, Stephanie and Kinsley, for the great work you're doing and for this presentation. Appreciate it. All right, next up is our Chief Financial Officer, Leslie Berlin, for a finance update. Leslie.
Thank you. All right, we really just have a couple quick things that we want to go over for today's update. The first, just to bring you guys along where we're at as far as the dashboard for this year. Thus far, our enrollment number included in the budget is 22,569. Our enrollment to date is 22,439. The latest full year average would basically put us at a projection of 22,107 students, so below our budget. But what I will just caveat for you guys is that is going to assume just the trend that we saw last year, okay? So it has no impact baked in for the work we're doing proactively to improve our enrollment and attendance numbers. So I do think that that's a conservative number at this point in time, and based on the 22,439 that I'm at today, I feel relatively comfortable with the budget that's in place. That being said, then also our attendance rate, we have 94% included in the budget. We are seeing slightly above the 94%, so that in combination somewhat offsets the risk I maybe have on enrollment. Again, it's very early, so we will just continue to keep a pulse on that very closely, especially coming into the November, December timeframe, so that potentially if we need to amend a budget, we can do that accordingly. Cash liquidity, this is based on what's going to be included in our final numbers for 2023, so it's as of June 30th, which should not dramatically change between then and now. But essentially, we have 80 days of cash on hand to operate. We have 143 of liquidity, so we're well above kind of where we need to be from a bank perspective on the requirements there. And then just to highlight, the $297 million is what we have as expenses budgeted to date, and at this point in time, I am managing that really well. The team is proactively working with each of the department leads and the schools, and we do not recommend having any change to this point. Going into the next slide, this is really our call to action for today. As you may recall, we have to continue to amend our budget to true up to our actuals for our final end-of-year reporting and statements that get submitted to the EPA. So overall, not significant change, but the key moving pieces from what we showed you guys as an amendment in June to today is really, we have a higher than what we originally showed amount on private and local revenue, and we do that on purpose as we budget. We tend to go lean on the conservative side. Also, that includes almost $2 million from our investment revenue that we have to basically true up at the end of the year, so I don't necessarily account for that. So that's the major moving part in revenues, so slightly higher than what we originally showed you. And then for total expenditure, and apologies for the typo on the slide, I just noticed that it should be net expenses or net profit revenues. So, sorry, the expenses are slightly higher because we basically had all of the accruals that we put in. And I think at this point in time, we've really been diligent about capturing everything. The majority of that is going to be related to facilities costs that we made sure to accrue for accordingly. So overall, that would put us at net revenue of $15,647,000. And that puts our debt service ratio at 1.29, so slightly better than what we had in the June amended budget. So if there are there any questions I would first want to put out there? And then if not, I think we need to
Okay.
vote.
I have a motion to approve the amended budget for FY23 as presented by Leslie.
So moved.
Sarah Aldridge, for a second.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any votes against the motion? Hearing none, the motion is approved by unanimous vote. Thank you very much, Leslie.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we will hear from Annette Enright, Senior Director of Special Populations, for a Special Populations update. Annette, thanks for being with us.
Hi, how are you tonight? Thank you so much, Mr. Clark. So as you shared, I'm Annette Enright, Senior Director of Special Populations. So I manage compliance as it relates to Section 504 and special education, so any programs supporting scholars with disabilities. So you've got a very lengthy executive summary in your pre-read, along with a link to our very lengthy policies and procedures, which you'll be considering for approval tonight as well. So just really quickly, I did want to share how does a student get or be referred, or how do they refer to special education or 504? So there are two ways a student can be referred for an evaluation. The first is a campus referral. So if a campus suspects a scholar has a disability, they can refer the scholar for a special education evaluation. Once my team obtains consent from the parent, we have 45 school days to complete that evaluation. The second way a student can be referred for special education in 504 is if a parent requests an evaluation. In that situation, we have 15 school days to respond to a parent's request with either prior written notice of proposal to evaluate the student or prior written notice of refusal to not evaluate the student. And so that also, if we do obtain consent from the parent, that is a 45 school day timeline as well. So I just wanted to remind you of the process. Lots of timelines in special education in 504, so we try to keep on top of that as much as we can. Next slide. So just really quickly, I wanted to share just our numbers over the last 3 years. I do want to share that our fiscal year 24 numbers are preliminary. Our October snapshot is the last Friday in October. And so these numbers look a little low right now. Our teams are working really hard to make sure that our numbers match in-state reporting what we have on our campuses. And so that includes transfer scholars, which we'll talk about in a second. And so those numbers may not look really high this school year, but I anticipate that they're going to be much higher in the next couple of weeks. I've also listed under special education just our 4 disabilities that require lots of support staff and take up a lot of our staff and our time on our campuses because they do need significant support such as toileting assistance, transition assistance. They may elope from the classroom. And so our scholars with intellectual disabilities, our scholars with emotional disturbances, and our scholars with autism. We also have a very, very high number of scholars who receive speech therapy. And so you'll see those numbers kind of gradually increase every year as well. And so that last number for fiscal year 24 will also increase after the October snapshot. And just like the state, we have seen an uptick in TEA complaints from both parents, employees, and so last school year we did see an uptick in TEA complaints, and so we've made some compliance enhancements to make sure that we're addressing any non-compliance that we may have found in investigations we did last school year. And so I've shared just 3 with you here. The first is that we've invested in the TASB operating procedures. So Thompson and Gordon actually writes the TASB operating procedures. And we work very closely with Thompson and Gordon as it relates to any SPED or 504 issues. So prior to that school year, we've had procedures and policies we've had them in place. They were just written by a separate law firm that was not associated with TASB. And so, as you can see in the 900-page document that I sent you, you'll see our TASB operating procedures that have been written by Thompson and Gordon and include any procedures that we have locally on our campuses. The second, okay. That's okay. No, that's okay. The second is that we've centralized a lot of our documentation, maintaining of our documentation. So we've grown very quickly. And prior to last school year, we kept a lot of our documentation on our campuses, which did not prove to be successful as we were investigating some of our allegations and through complaints. And so we have developed a centralized platform for maintaining service documentation. It's going really well. We've already finished out Q1, and so our compliance managers here at Central Office are actually monitoring and making sure that we are maintaining that documentation centrally. And then the last thing is, we're just being really intentional that if we do find non-compliance at some point, that we are addressing it quickly with parents, and that we're transparent with parents. One of the things that we are running into this school year is just the number of SPED vacancies we have across the network. And so we've been really transparent with parents when we do have a vacancy, and we are monitoring progress and making sure that we're going back to our meetings to make sure that we are monitoring progress through that process and then addressing any sort of compensatory services for our scholars. Yes, sorry. So just two very big legislative updates this school year, which have been reflected in our procedures. The first is House Bill 3928, which focuses on dyslexia evaluation, identification, and instruction. And so special education is also separated into two sections, right, two portions. We've got compliance, which I manage, and Stephanie and her team manage the special education instructional side, as well as dyslexia, compliance, and instruction. And so we're working really closely with Stephanie's team to address the bill within our policies and procedures. The state of Texas has given us until the 24-25 school year to address evaluation, identification, and instruction. And so we've already addressed those changes within our policy and our procedures, but we understand that they will be very impactful to our staff and to our kids in 24-25. And so we're working through those kinks right now.
And I would just share, I think this is like an example of an unfunded mandate at the state level, because on that instruction piece, to make sure that there is a teacher trained in dyslexia, which is very expensive training, there was no additional funds that were given for that, and so just this, what I am positive was well-intentioned by, our representatives in Austin was, we know dyslexia will rise, we should make sure there's more protections and supports for those children, but the way this is written will increase our expenses meaningfully next year in order of providing those services, and we'll see obviously how this next special session, this current special session plays out, but this is a perfect example of increased expenses we will see from a change.
Yeah, it'll also impact on the evaluation side significantly because we're having to go back and evaluate any scholars who were served through Section 504 through the special education process. And so right now what we're doing is we're looking through the list of scholars served through Section 504, identifying whether or not they've already been formally evaluated through special education, and if they have not, seeking consent from parents to evaluate them and consider them for special education supports. The second update, which is pretty significant for my compliance team, is the Children Who Transfer framework. So prior to this school year, it was just called Children Who Transferred, whether they transferred over the summer or during the school year, and we did not differentiate between the two. This school year, this summer, that has changed. So any scholar who enrolls over the summer is now considered a child who is transferred to a new district. And we either have to accept their IEP from their previous district or hold an R committee meeting prior to the first day of school. So, at Uplift, we always knew the first day of school, they were in their seats, they were officially our students, and we started the transfer process then. That has become a little difficult, or it was difficult for our staff this summer because our teachers don't return until a couple weeks before the first day of school. And so in order to have a duly constituted ARD meeting, we have to have general ed and special ed teachers. And so that's proven to be a little difficult, but we've worked through the kinks. The second part of that is students who transfer during the school year, we still have 10 days from the verification of sped status to have a transfer meeting. And prior to the school year, we had 30 school days to have a permanent placement meeting. This school year, they changed that timeline and is now 20 school days for us to reconvene and develop an IEP at Uplift. So, changing those timelines, making things a little bit more difficult for our staff, but we're definitely on top of it and on top of our procedures as well. And so, I'll take questions if you have any questions. Yes.
I have one. Yes, from your point about unfunded mandate, what do you think about this? But in terms of all of our required compliance activities and record keeping, I'm thinking about some discussions we've had in this room before. How much of that is just paper-based, like pieces of paper filled out in the file, versus digital, like in a defined system that maybe even the state says these are the requirements that you have to fill out the system?
That's a great question. So anything related to the scholar's IEP is housed in an electronic system that we call eSped. So Section 504 plans as well are housed in our electronic system. We have what we call a digital archive manager where we archive those documents, those official documents. But anything related to service implementation, IEP service documentation that a teacher would monitor themselves is all written in paper-based. And so those are the things that we've now centralized in our at central office, where our teachers are now providing those documentation documents to our campus coordinators, who are then uploading to this OneDrive folder that we monitor at central office.
So centralized but still paper-based?
Yeah, centralized but still paper-based.
Maybe scanned and saved but still paper-based?
Yeah. Yeah, and the reason for that is depending on the scholar's IEP, there may be different data points that we have to capture. And so Stephanie's documentation log may look different from my documentation log. And so unfortunately, teachers will have to carry that with them as they're serving the college market.
Other questions for Ms. Enright? Okay, if not, do I have a motion to approve the annual special education policies and procedures as Ms. Enright has presented them? Okay, thank you, Rick. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Are there any votes against the motion? Hearing none, the motion is approved by unanimous vote. Thank you very much. Oh yeah, thank you all very much. This is great, and thank you for the great work on a clearly very challenging work with. All right.
What we do, we're pretty good at it, Colin.
The usual. Okay, on to the next thing. We're next going to hear from Derek Ward on our administrative action item. Derek.
Yeah, just very briefly, because we're part of the public school system, in order to comply with the Texas Open Meetings Act, we have to record meetings for the meetings and post those online. And so I believe everyone here has received a copy of the meeting minutes from the Old Board Retreat. And so with that, I'll turn it over to you for a vote.
Is there a motion to approve the September 22nd, 2023 board retreat minutes, which were in the pre-read as presented? Thank you, Harold. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you very much, John. Are there any votes against the motion? Hearing none, the motion is approved by a unanimous vote. Thank you, Derek. All right. We now move to 2 administrative hearings before the board, and I will ask Derek to manage those on behalf of the board.
Sure. So first up, we have an expulsion appeal for Scholar ZS. Good afternoon. The date is October 17th, 2023. Time is 5:11. And the Uplift Education Board is here this afternoon to hear the expulsion appeal of Scholar ZS. At this time, I believe we received notice that they will not be attending. Correct. Okay. The parents chose not to attend. As As such, under section 55(1.02, we'll authorize to hear this in closed session unless the family scholar requests for the hearing to be in open session. As they're not here, we will hold the session in closed session in order to protect their privacy. All right, thank you for your patience. I hereby call this meeting reopened at 5:20 p.m. Note here, the same form of the board is present. No decision was made by the board during any closed or executive session. As a reminder, this is an administrative proceeding, not a court of law, and the Uplift Board of Trustees is tasked with determining whether Uplift administration violated any law or policy. The board will now consider a motion, if any, on the expulsion appeal as far as you consider a motion.
Any discussion, first of all? Okay, do I have a motion to deny the expulsion appeal of Scholar CS and uphold the expulsion hearing officer's decision?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Are there any votes against the motion? Hearing none, the motion is approved by unanimous vote. Okay. Derek, anything else?
Yeah, thanks everyone. Notified of the board's decision. With that, we are going to move on to the level 3 employee grievance appeal of Ron Martin. And with that, I believe we need just a moment to contact them via telephone. Thank you.
So next week, we're having our teacher appreciation, teacher and staff appreciation event a week from today, Tuesday. And we're hoping that all of you will take the school and go and show some love to our faculty and staff. I guarantee you you'll feel better for having done it. And so the little red wagon is, if you guys have done so in the past, Amanda did last year, she fills that with all kinds of treats for our faculty and staff, and we go around in the wagon, and Amanda and faculty and staff, and they're very appreciative. So I want to say, please, if you haven't signed up, please do so. And in addition to that, they're doing lunches with school deans and operation deans at each campus. And
Okay, will do.
Christine and
Thank
I,
you.
Are you ready or do we have that?
Meeting's 5 minutes.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
great.
So Christine and I did the first one, and we asked to have a tour of the campus, which they gave us, and is a highlight to see how proud they are of their students, of their facility, of their teachers and staff. And then we had lunch, which was provided by Angela and her team, and we sat and just had questions and answers and just sort of talked with top administration, and lots of great things to say about Uplift and where we're doing really well and where they could feel a little more love. And it was a great, hour and a half, we spent maybe 2 hours. And I'm excited to do another one right away. So we're hoping each of you will sign up to do one of those. Again, teachers and staff really appreciate having a voice, having their voices being heard, and I think you will enjoy hearing what they have to say.
I'll put that one more time.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for making the lunches happen. What a great idea. And I've said before to you all that doing the teacher appreciation thing is among the most fun things you can possibly do on the board. Please sign up for that. You will enjoy it.
So the treats are supplied by the the school engagement committee. Yes. Yes. you'll hear from Angela very soon. Thank you.
Can I just point out that Dr. Galvin is one of the people that we met with?
It was a treat. It really
Thank
was.
you. It really was for us too.
It was really good time, good listeners and supporters.
Please do so. And all the treats that you don't eat tonight will go in the red wagon and will be shared with teachers and staff.
If you ate that, I think I
next
really
week.
wanted to
That's
have
your
you
job.
and a massive sugar high.
Anyway, thank you.
Gary, have you want to start?
I'll try to do it. Yeah, hi there. You ready to join us? All right.
We should overtake John.
All right, so Jerry, that's why I was on the phone with me.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Watson. Now, are you intending to have this session be open or closed? Open? Okay.
Yes. Now, let me ask you am I gonna have the opportunity to ask any?
You'll have an opportunity to present. If you'll give me just a moment, I can run through some of the logistics, if that works for you.
That's fine, and are you going to take report or full report?
It is being video recorded.
Oh, well, you'll have a nice picture of me, I'm sure, so,
Yes, sir. All right, give me just one moment. So, good afternoon. The date's October 17th, 2023. The time is 5:27 p.m. And the Uplift Education Board is here this afternoon to hear the Level 3 Employee Grievance Appeal of Autumn Larby. Please note that Ms. Larby's legal counsel, Mr. Larry Watts, is attending this hearing via telephone with his client. Sections 55.1.074 and 55.1.082 of the Texas Government Code authorize the board to hear this appeal in closed session unless the employee requests for the hearing to be held in open session. Based on conversation with Mr. Watts, my understanding, Ms. Larby wishes for the hearing to be heard in open session. Is that correct?
yes.
Okay, very good. Well, Ms. Larby is elected for the hearing to be held in open session. After the appeal is heard by the board, it may seek advice from its attorney in executive session as authorized by section 55.1.071 of the Texas Government Code. The board will not make any decisions or take any action during executive session. Mr. Watts and Ms. Larby, you're going to have 10 minutes to present your appeal to the board. You can reserve part of your 10 minutes for rebuttal to the administration's presentation. Would you like to reserve any time for rebuttal, and if so, how much?
Yes, I'd like to reserve, 5 minutes. No,
Five.
excuse me, that's a little, that's a little much, 3 minutes.
3 minutes? Thank you.
Yeah.
And Uplift administration, you're going to have 10 minutes as well. Would you like to reserve part of your time for rebuttal?
No, please just give me a communication, I have 9 minutes, that would be great.
Very good, thank you.
Yeah, they don't give good buttons.
A couple of important notes. This is an administrative proceeding, not a court of law. The procedures are set by Uplift. There are no rules of evidence, rules of hearsay, or like. The board's tasked with determining whether any law or board policy has been violated. The parties are not permitted to ask questions of the board or each other. The board may, but is not required to ask questions of administration or the employee. For scholar confidentiality purposes, all scholars, if any, should be referred to by initials, and the decision of the board is final. And with that, Ms. Larby, you have 7 minutes and may proceed.
All right, first of all, my name's Larry Watts, and Autumn Larby is my client with the board. I would like to address some of the exhibits that I was presented with today, 457 pages, but it's not going to take that long for me to go to the points that I feel like need to be examined by the board. Now, I'm going to be asking the board to take what we call administrative notice. That's like judicial notice, although understand that there are the rules of evidence still apply. They do principle. In judicial notice, that's Rule 201 of the Texas Rules of Evidence. In administrative notice, that is your authority and power to administer your proceedings in a orderly and in a informative manner, so that you can inform yourself of different matters that need to come up that are directly impacted by the purpose of your presence. So what I want you to do is, first of all, take judicial or administrative notice of page 3 in your book through 5. Now, 3 is through 5 is a letter from Ms. Marty to Karen Wolf, Senior Director of Talent Management, and it's dated June 4th, 2023. In that particular letter, I want you to take judicial notice, or administrative notice, excuse me, if I slip from time to time, you'll understand and forgive me. I want you to take administrative notice of the 7 points that Ms. Marty makes, and then also I'd like for you to realize that Ms. Marty has made those statements under the responsibility of a truthful comment, statement to a board, so it's sort of official. So it's true to her personal knowledge and subject to what I would call the perjury. I also then want you to take the administrative notice of the letter of page 140 plus through 141, and that's a letter to Olive Larby from Colin Davis Dean, February 5, 2021, entitled A Written Warning. Now, I think it's stale, but I'm sure it's here for a reason, and your lawyers probably are going to argue that. So I would object to it if the rules of ethics apply, but they don't. So that means you can probably walk around over it and consider it. But I am going to call your attention to the fact that whoever put together your exhibits did you no service. They violated your principles, violated the spirit of your rules. For instance, it's called 2021 letter by Ms. Lardy to the Uplift organization, which was entitled Rebuttal of False Allegations of Unprofessional Behavior and Fear of Retaliation. That was not included, so I am going to ask that before you make a decision, you take administrative notice and have that letter presented to you by Ms. Lardy, and that's going to be a letter that will be of several pages. I can read that to you, but if I did, it would take up my entire 7 minutes. The next thing I would like for you to take administrative notice of is a letter dated September 13th, 2022, to Autumn Lardy from Mauricio Dominguez, Managing Director, and it's entitled Written Letter. Now, when you do that, I also want you to notice that there's some information that has been excluded from the book, which should have been included, and that information is in 2 parts. First, it's a series of text information that was sent by Lardy to Mr. Dominguez, and it is the text message that was sent to Ms. Lardy inadvertently by Ms. Galvan, our principal. And in that text message, specifically on the 2nd page, which has been excluded from you, which is not provided to you for judged by supervisor or it's known to them also by supervisor, and not knowing has created confusion for me. Working in this constant state of uncertainty is debilitating and impedes my job as an instructional coach and leader. Now, so what these documents that have been excluded from you should show is that Dr. Galvan and Mauricio Rodriguez, and perhaps others, like Ms. Brunos, have set about to
Mr. Watts, I'll just note that you're approaching 7 minutes.
all right, let me finish it up. Have set about to ambush my client and to deprive her of her career and her opportunity to serve the student scholars of your school. So I will reserve the 3 minutes, but I'm asking that administrative notice be taken of those documents that I have mentioned. And if you need copies of them, although they're in your office, I'll be more than happy in the morning to send them to you. I don't have a way to do it now. I'm at home. I'm just getting door. That's why y'all wait. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Administration, you may proceed. You have 9 minutes. Wonderful.
Thank you. Thank the board for their time and attention this evening. Just for a little housekeeping matters, you all have a grievance policy and it sets out the steps and levels and the documents that need to be submitted. In this case, Ms. Larby did have a level 2, but she was welcome to bring in exhibits that she wanted to include in the record. She had that opportunity, and everything that she asked to be included is included in the record that you have before you. So all these letters that he's referring to the extent they're in the record, you already have them. Additionally, just to address this idea that we dumped 457 pages on Mr. Watson and Ms. Larby today or this morning is not correct. Mr. Watts has had this binder for months now. This hearing has been rescheduled multiple times due to Mr. Watts' request. He has had all of these documents in ample time to make any objections before today that he may have had. So getting to the grievance, Ms. Larby served as a dean at Uplift Wisdom Preparatory High School, and she served as a 10th grade 504 coordinator and campus SST coordinator. Now, in November of 2022, Dr. Galvan, the academic director, received information Ms. Larby felt adhered to guidelines and timelines for Section 504 meetings. Therefore, Ms. Larby was placed on administrative leave and an investigation was conducted. So moving back in time, on September 14, 2022, Ms. Larby was notified that 504 meetings needed to be completed by October 17, 2022. But Ms. Larby did not meet that deadline. On October 3, 2022, when the deadline is approaching, an email was sent to Ms. Larby requesting an update on 504 meetings and cases, including 3 students Ms. Larby was responsible for, AR, JR, and CS, but Ms. Larby did not respond to that email. Now, on November 2nd, 2022, so we're past the required deadline, Ms. Larby assured Dr. Galvan, because she asked, because she was concerned about it, Ms. Larby assured her that all the 504 meetings were completed and up to date. That was not true. In fact, Dr. Galvan was later informed that not all the meetings had been completed and the 504 plans were not up to date. So on Sunday, November 6, 2022, without any required notice or prior warning to these parents, and in a last-ditch effort to comply with these directives and requirements that Ms. Larby had been given months before, Ms. Larby contacted families on a Sunday by telephone for supposed 504 accommodation needs. And then she proceeded to complete and update 504 paperwork based on these supposed November 6 504 meetings. Now, let's be clear, these telephone calls on a Sunday are not covered 504 meetings. They were not attended by any other staff member. They did not include the appropriate personnel. No prior notice was given to these parents. Moreover, Ms. Larby then misrepresented information in 504 paperwork, indicating that these meetings were 504 and that they had been held on November 6th, and also that other staff members were in attendance who were not in attendance. Ms. Larby called these families on a Sunday by herself. For example, on an Uplift 504 form for student CS. Ms. Larby put in that an annual 504 meeting was held on November 6, 2022. But very clearly, when you go and look at the notes, it's all from 2020. And it was notes from multiple teachers in 2020 for this meeting. There was no signatures, which are also required on that form. But Ms. Larby went in there and put annual 504 meeting that had been completed on November 6, 2022, which is not true. On another 504 form for student JR, Ms. Larby again indicated a 504 meeting occurred on November 6, 2022. But on this form, Ms. Larby put her electronic signature indicating attendance at that meeting. She also put an electronic signature for another teacher indicating that teacher's attendance at the meeting, and that teacher was not there. For student AR, although Ms. Larby told Dr. Galvan that that 504 meeting had occurred, it clearly had not, as indicated in the 504 paperwork. Dr. Galvan followed up with the parents to ask them what happened once this information came to light. And they confirmed that no other Uplift employee was present on these unexpected phone calls to them. And they didn't have any prior notice of these alleged 504 meetings or provided any of the necessary information in these meetings that you would otherwise be required to have. One of the parents described this call on Sunday from Ms. Larby as strange and said he would have had no problem attending a regularly scheduled meeting. They haven't brought it up today, but I imagine they will. They did in the level 2 grievance hearing. Ms. Larby contends that she didn't receive appropriate training regarding 504 requirements, and that's just not correct. For example, and not an exclusive list, Ms. Larby attended training on August 1st, 2022, September 21st, 2022, and October 3rd, 2022. Additionally, Uplift has specific 504 operating guidelines, a 504 coordinator compliance handbook, and other materials to ensure 504 compliance, which was all accessible to Ms. Larby. And again, to the extent Ms. Larby felt that she had questions or needed additional information, Uplift has supports for that. Dr. Galvan is available, as well as folks in your 504 and stuff departments. So following the investigation, Ms. Larby's employment was terminated on April 20th, 2023 for violations of those standards of conduct, including insubordination and failure to fulfill duties. It's very clear she failed to meet deadlines with respect to 504 cases. She failed to follow the 504 guidelines and procedures, and she misrepresented information related to 504 cases and documents, which violates a number of your standards of conduct that you set out in your employee handbook. In the level 2 hearing, Mr. Watts represented that Ms. Larby had never had any other prior infractions or written warnings, which is just not the case. And I won't go through them extensively. She received a number of warnings for her failure to fulfill duties and failure to adhere to the Uplift standards of conduct. The level 2 hearing, we may bring it up again today, they sort of try to point the finger at Dr. Galvan. It's really her, and it's this personality conflict with her, it's her really trying to attack Ms. Larby. But that's not true, and if you go through and you look at these written warnings and other infractions she's had conversations with multiple folks, other than Dr. Galvan or Dr. Dumas, throughout her time in Uplift. And at least in September of 2022, you have one teacher who supervised specifically reached out and asked that she not be her supervisor for a number of reasons. As stated in the level 2 decision, that it's very clear that Ms. Larby did violate the standards of conduct, and the managing director, Marisa Dominguez, found that her termination was allowed for appropriate. I don't know how much time I have.
You're approaching 9 minutes.
Just one other thing that they might bring up, just so I don't have to go back and forth with rebuttal. During the level 2 grievance and Ms. Larby's grievance, she claims retaliation. And they argued that this all stems from this event back in December of 2021, where Ms. Larby, she didn't go report to HR or anybody else. She went and sort of gossiped to a counselor and alleged that staff members idea that this all stems from this retaliation, and Dr. Galvan really has to get back at her for this, what happened back in, was reported in December 2021, isn't true, it just doesn't make any sense. Ultimately, we just respectfully request that the board uphold the level 2 decision and deny Ms. Lardy's grievance.
Thank you. And Mr. Watts, Ms. Larby, you may proceed with your rebuttal. You have 3 minutes remaining.
Thank you very much. I'm going to emphasize a couple of points that were made by opposing counsel. Number one, it is true that my client reported a violation of your rules, which was the consumption of alcohol by your staff members on campus. It reported to my client and to me that Ms. Galvan has occasionally shown up at work with the smelled alcohol, and perhaps that's a practice at the school that is encouraged and may be well known by your administration. I've also been informed by members of your staff former members of your staff, that both Mr. Mauricio and Dominguez and Dr. Galvan have been on performance improvement plans for their role in related to the handling of the Larkin case. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. We'll have to find out in due time. But I would like to point out that as far as the training, Ms. Larkin points out that she was never overly or professionally trained during the 2022-2023 school year regarding 504 duties assigned to her. When the former 504 coordinator, Ms. Jackson, came to the school on September 14, 2022, Ms. Larkin was required by her supervisor, Dr. Galvan, to facilitate the mandatory all-day RTI professional development for staff. What I was about to read to you is in point 3 of the letter that was sent by Ms. Larkin on June 4, 2023 to Karen Roller. I would encourage you on each of the items that I have suggested that you take administrative notice of, and by the way, that obligates you to take administrative notice of. And administrative notice means to consider. You'll find that in item 3, the discussion of the training is handled by Ms. Larkin in some detail. You'll also find that in number 7 of that letter, she points out that there was prohibited alcohol consumed on school time and property by co-staffers. And so I think all of those things surely should be of some concern, although I realize this is Texas, and I realize that teachers and staffers have very little importance in the grand scheme of things in the state, although I'm a native Texan and have been with my family, through my family, in the state for over 190 years. I do think that it's important for us to keep in mind that
Mr. Watts, I don't want to interrupt you, but you're over time.
that there is a right and there is a wrong, and what's happened to my client is a wrong. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. Wish I had more time. Talk to you. Maybe we will later on.
Thank you, Mr. Watts. And administration, you're at time unless you have something very quick.
Very quickly, just want to add, because Mr. Watts decided to, I guess, make new unfounded allegations. There's been no allegation that Dr. is aware of that Dr. Galvan was reported to work while drinking, smelling like alcohol, or anything of the like. I'm not sure where or why Mr. Watts decided that was an appropriate thing to say, but there have been no allegations of that sort.
Thank you. And at this time, the board may ask any questions of the grievant or the administration. Does the board have any questions?
Can I just clarify the board's role here as I understand it? The purpose is to determine whether there's any evidence that the administration is violating state or federal law or not.
Correct. The board's role is to determine whether there is a violation of law and policy.
Other questions?
Okay, the board may now like to enter executive session under section 551.071, the Texas Government Code, to consult with its attorney. Is there any board member who wishes to enter executive session for this purpose? Okay, hearing none, the board has elected not to go into executive session. And as we're in open session, we will continue on the record at 5:52. I note that the same quorum of the board is present. We did not retreat to closed session or executive session. As a reminder, this is an administrative proceeding and not a court of law, and the Uplift Board of Trustees is tasked with determining whether Uplift administration violated law or board policy. Board Chair, is there a motion from the board?
Is there a motion to deny the level 3 grievance appeal of Autumn Larby and uphold the level 2 hearing officer's decision?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Are there any votes against the motion? Hearing none, the motion is approved by unanimous vote.
Thank you, everyone. At this time, you've been notified of the board's decision, and this hearing is closed. The time is 5:53 p.m.